everybody. Welcome to The Whole Elephant. This is Eric McClenahan. Thanks for finding your way here. It's exciting. Today, this episode is near and dear to my heart. Pete Shinnick, and I won't call him that the rest of the time. You know his name now. It's Pete Shinnick. He is Coach Shinnick in my book. If you don't know, I played a little small college football. When I was in college, I went to Azusa Pacific University, and Coach Shinnick was our head coach. And he had a profound impact on my life. And even though my life journey took me in a completely different direction of football, he is still one of the people that I would say impacted my life in incredible ways. And this is really special because I hadn't talked to him in about 10 years. I mean, it had been a long time. And so catching up with him was really fun. Can't wait for you guys to hear it. We're trying to find different perspectives on life, different perspectives on careers, stuff you might not know about careers. So we're jumping into football today. What's it like to be a head coach? What's it like to try to have a family life and all those things? Coaching is a crazy industry that takes lots of hours and lots of work. And what has that been like for Coach Shinnick and his journey? Thanks so much for being here. Let's have a chat. Coach, thanks for being here, man. This is, I've been excited about this all day. It has been a long time since we had a chat.
No, thank you. Great to see you, and I appreciate you having me on. Look forward to having a conversation here.
What is the state of Division II football and at West Florida right now in the COVID days? What are you guys doing right now?
Well, it's an interesting question, interesting answer. So unlike Division I, who said, "Hey, let's go out and play, and we'll meet all the requirements of the D1 testing and what the NCAA wants," unlike FCS, which I think that's a whole discussion in and of itself. Hey, we're going to play in the spring and we're going to play for a national championship, and then turn around and play again in the fall. I think I've got some FCS head coaching buddies that are a little leery of what that's going to look like. Yeah. D2 said, we are not going to sponsor a championship at all. And they came out with that statement. And as D2 coaches, it was like, okay, so what are we playing for? You know, right. What exactly are we doing?
So you said, like, well, we get to repeat no matter what then. Champions for 2 years.
Well, I looked at it, from a selfish standpoint. How can I keep the national championship another year? You know, so no. But I said, okay, so we're already tight on budgets, D2, trying to figure it out. So now you guys are going to allow people to play, but they're not playing for anything. It really didn't make sense. So what some Division II schools have done, and there's a handful of them, they have said, we're going to play a couple of games in the fall, and then we're going to treat spring like a normal spring. Okay. What a lot of D2 schools have done is said in the fall, which is what we're doing right now, we're basically having spring ball. We just completed practice 11 of spring ball yesterday. Had a scrimmage. And went out and went against each other, that kind of thing. Right. In the spring, what we're going to do, Eric, is we're going to have some outside competition, but we're not going to count it as a game, even though we could. You can play games in the spring and they don't count towards eligibility. It's really kind of a free spring. I just didn't want to have game responsibilities, again, spend money to travel, spend money to feed people, spend money to do all that when it didn't count for anything. So what we've got lined up right now is we've got two, what we're going to call, NFL type inter squad practices. Right. We're getting together with two other Division II teams. We're going to do some one-on-one drills against each other. We're going to do a red zone. We're going to do a skell. We're going to do a 2-minute, and then we'll scrimmage at the end of it. And it allows us to get some outside competition. Again, the last time we competed was in December of 2019. Obviously, we're one of the last two teams to compete in that deal, but obviously not doing spring ball. we come back. Like I said, we're getting towards the end of our fall ball right now. We wanted outside competition before we line up in the fall of 2021. And
Right. Well, what's interesting is after you broke our hearts and left APU, you found your way
I'm
to.
sorry I broke your heart. I apologize.
You made your way to North Carolina Pembroke, who hadn't had a program for 50 years or something like that, right?
Yep.
And then West Florida, where they had never had a program.
Correct.
And so you had two other stops where you were starting programs from scratch, where you recruit and then you spend whole falls not playing games. Do you feel like those situations helped prepare you for this?
Most definitely, because you find what we found out during those times, and I had one season like that at UNC Pembroke, and then I had two falls like that here at UWF. And what you find is your tolerance level of how many practices you can actually get to and what you can actually accomplish.
Right.
And
before mutiny.
What's that?
Before mutiny.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So to give you an example, in the fall of 2015, when we did it here, basically what we did is we strung together 3 segments, but it was 3 15 practice segments back to back to back to back. So you, having gone through spring ball, now turn around and do 2 more.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. And you get burnout, and you get wear out, and you get exhaustion. Now, we did it with a bunch of freshmen here. So now we're doing this here. It's like, hey, we only need 15 practices. And then in the spring, we probably only need about 20, 22 with some outside competition. You really do learn what your tolerance is. And again, mutiny is a good word. You're trying to avoid that.
Right. I mean, it's hard enough, I would imagine, to recruit a 17, 18-year-old kid and say, hey, you might play, you might not. We got this spot open. You're going to have to compete for a job. How did you possibly recruit kids saying, we for sure aren't going to play the first 2 years? What was that like?
Yeah. And it's a great question, because we go back to North Carolina Pembroke, and we did it. And the objective was, we really wanted to sell a vision. And we wanted to sell what we were trying to accomplish. All right. So as you do that, we're building off what we did at Azusa Pacific. So obviously I come in and say, hey, look, we had success there. We feel like we can have success here. Here's the vision. Here's what the university wants. And you try to build on that. So in both cases, it was really selling a vision. And when we went to UNC Pembroke, I really felt like we could be one of the best teams in that region. Just having studied the landscape, knowing what it was like. I GA'd at Clemson, so I kind of knew the area. My wife was from South Carolina, so we'd been around that area quite a bit. And so I felt like, all right, we go to UNC Pembroke, we could be one of the best teams in the region. And when we started, that was really the sell. We also, the university, they built us a nice facility, so that was pretty cool. We had that going for us. And we were one of the few public schools, that we were recruiting against a lot of private schools. So having been in a private school, knowing the costs of all that, felt like we had a good niche, and really said, look, man, we can do this, and we can be successful. And in our 3rd year, we went to the playoffs. And then in our 4th year, we were ranked most of the season until some injuries. 5th year had a close to a playoff run, So, we had that. So we come here, and I really felt like we could be one of the best teams in the country. And that's, when you go D2 to D2, why do you do it? Well, I felt like we'd be one of the best teams in the country. So now we're building off the APU success. But we're also building off, hey, look, man, I know starting a program's tough, but look, in our 3rd year at UNC Pembroke, we made it to the playoffs. And so, we feel like we can have more success here. And really, Eric, we got an amazing group in our first recruiting class. I mean, just quality people, hard workers who were really good football players as well. And, that core really is what propelled us to the success that we had over the course of our first 4 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to dive into your coaching career a little bit. You mentioned you did your GA work at Clemson and Arkansas, and then it was small college football from that point on. Was that always the plan, or how did that come about that the small college football route was the path for you?
Yeah, so I started off at the University of Richmond. I spent a year there, spent a year at the University of Arkansas, spent 2 years at Clemson. And then right after Clemson, went to Oregon State as the recruiting coordinator. So I was off the field. And 6 months into that job, I knew I had made a mistake because I was in administration. I wasn't hands-on coaching, and I was handling all the recruiting. I was handling travel for the recruits. I was watching video, and I was like, okay, this is not who I am.
Yeah.
Thought I was decent at the job, but it was not what I was comfortable doing. I said, okay, I got to get back on the field. And I really felt like I didn't care where I got back. I just wanted to get back. And so I had the opportunity to go to Northern Michigan, did that, was there 9 months. Our head coach got fired. And, I really started praying to, Almighty God, saying, okay, look, I mentioned all the places that I've been. I've been at 6 places in 8 years. And I was like, Lord, my first child's going to be born. I don't want to be this coach that's moving all over the place, moving all around. Do you really want me in coaching? I mean, is that what you want? I mean, I came here. This was my, really my second full-time job. Do you want me in coaching? And I heard a clear yes that, hey, this is what I want you to do. This is the profession that I want you in. And, a lot of times when the Lord answers prayers, for some people, it's an instant deal and all this. Well, I was basically out of a job mid-March. Anna, my oldest daughter, was born April 3rd. And I felt like, about a week after that, God was saying, yeah, I want you in coaching. And I'm like, okay, Lord, that's great. But, I got to have a job to stay in coaching because I didn't have a job. And, about mid-May, so a little bit of a period there where I was like, all right, I feel like I'm supposed to stay in this. Mid-May, finally ended up getting a job at St. Cloud. And what happened was in the St. Cloud time, and then I did spend 1 year at Humboldt State prior to Azusa Pacific. But what really happened during that time was I just felt like God was saying, look, I want to keep you in coaching. You got to get over, because I'd say, yeah, I want to get back to D1. I want to be a D1 coach and all this type of stuff. God just kept saying, hey, look, I have you where I have you. Stop trying to be someplace else. Stop trying to, tell people, well, I'm a D1 guy, but I'm coaching at D2 right now. Just look, I control the logo on your chest. I control what you do. Just make the most of it.
Right.
And it was really a very peaceful, feeling to have.
Yeah.
And then with that being
make the big time where you are.
Yeah, exactly. Take Frosty and do it.
Frosty? Was that Frosty?
That's Frosty.
Yeah.
Yep. Make the big time where you are. And, I didn't know that at the time, but then after we beat Frosty, I read his book. So 3 times, by the way, which I think we're the only people ever to do that. If you listen to the Frosty people. So with that, then I really started saying, okay, what do I want out of this?
Yeah.
And for me, it became as much, I want to be able to control the culture and I want to be able to control my time.
Yeah.
And so those 2 components really drove the rest of the decisions that I made.
Right.
And, I got offered a D3 head job the summer before I applied for APU after Coach Shealy left. So about 8 months before that, I got offered a D3 job, turned it down, didn't feel like it was the right situation, but I did want to be a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And then Azusa Pacific opened up and, was gracious enough for them to hire me. And that really became, all right, now I'm a head coach. I'm 33 years old. I'm a head coach. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to spend my time. Now let's create a culture. Now let's make sure my family's taken care of. And now let's do really what I'm trying to do. And been a head coach, I'm 55 right now. So I've been a head coach for 22 years. And really there's only one assistant job that I've really ever even had a conversation about. And that's when a former teammate, John Embry, got the head job at Colorado. And that's really about the only person I've ever talked to about being an assistant coach.
Right.
And that, alma mater, former teammate, that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's been, okay, I feel like I'm supposed to be a head coach and this is where God has me. And I'm just going to keep moving in the direction that he keeps calling.
Yeah. When you talk about wanting to control the culture, wanting to control your time, what are the specific things you wanted to do when you were a 33-year-old, and has that morphed over your time as a head coach?
Well, I'll flip and I'll start with time first.
Yeah.
When I took the APU job, I had two young daughters. Elijah and Benjamin were both born within the first couple of years and of being at APU. And so everything I did, I wanted to be focused around how can I use my time to the best of my ability and still be the father that I want to be and still be the husband that I want to be.
Yeah.
Football takes a lot of time, just like a lot of other professions. A lot of, any profession you're in, you could, make it into as much time as you want. I think there are in football, there's just a lot of film that needs to be watched and a lot of things that need to take place. There's no other way to get around the time. And the season's very intense, as you know, and it's very straightforward as to what needs to get done. So I made it a statement, or I made a statement to myself. It's like, okay, I'm gonna be home when I can be home. All right. So, all right, at APU, we had to wait for soccer to get off the game field before we could get on it. So we couldn't start until 4. So that meant practice was going to end at 6:15. So I just made it a point of, look, once practice ends, I'm going home because I can. Well, there's still hours to be worked. There's still things that'll be done. So what does that mean? Well, that means I'm coming in at 6 a.m. the next morning. My family's asleep at 6 a.m. But my family's awake at 6 p.m. So we got a 12-hour day. You can spend that 12-hour day any way you want to.
Right.
And that 12-hour day really turns into about a 14-hour day when it's all said and done, because you actually get home, you spend time with your family, but you're still watching film somehow, some way, or you're making recruiting calls or whatever you're doing.
Sure.
So I just wanted to make my time a priority to be around my family as much as I could.
Right.
And then the other from the culture, and I think, this is something 33, I was like, all right, I know what I want it to look like. At least I thought I did. I think I do a much better job of it now, but that's really learning through experience and seeing what it looks like. But just, everything from, be early to everything, to no cussing, to look, this is how we're going to treat people. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to look people in the eyes when we talk to them. We're going to open doors for people and we're going to say, please and thank you. None of that has changed. But now, hey, what does practice look like? How do we do it? And really over the course of time, I think if I pulled out my coaching manual right now, you'd recognize a lot of it, but then there's certain things that have kind of morphed into it. The 3 sets of 3, we still preach the 3 sets of 3, and we still
3 sets of 3.
3 sets of 3.
I love it. I could probably write them down still.
And we've changed a couple, obviously at APU, honor God with all your actions was one of them. We've changed that. We're at public institutions.
Yeah.
But with that, we've kind of developed into, what we would say is our core values. Okay. And our core values really are smart hard work. John Wooden had industriousness as one of the cornerstones of his pyramid of success.
Yeah.
Really, that's what smart hard work is. We want to be efficient. how can we get things done? I felt like we were a very efficient practice team. I think we're more efficient now. I feel like we're efficient in the weight room, things that we do. The second one is positive energy. Hey, we're going to be upbeat. We read a John Gordon book every year. We talk about positive energy. We talk about feeding the positive dog. We talk about, how that affects you. And then the third is unity. And that unity really started, with the life stories. And we've taken kind of life stories to a whole new area. You now got to do them not just with your Kanaki group. You got to do them with about 4 or 5 other groups. And we've added questions to that, but it really does blend into all the things that we do. So when I look at culture and I look at what it was at APU to what it is now, a lot of similarities, but now how do we redefine that? How do we make it better? How do we put it in a situation where, everybody understands who we are, how we do things, and why we do things?
Right. In those early years of coaching, who were you emulating? Did you have good coaches growing up that cared about you and respected you, or did you learn from what people did in terms of, I don't want to do that? When I was being coached in high school, I thought coaching was yelling and cussing at me. And then when I got to APU, it was like, oh my gosh, I think this man actually cares about me as a human. That was like the first time that I noticed that. And really probably what made me become a PE major and think that I was going to go into coaching. Did you have people growing up that emulated that for you, or was it, I'm going to rebel against what I experienced?
Well, it's funny because it's a little bit of both. Obviously, my dad, having played in the NFL, coached in the NFL, he was a huge influence, and really still to this day, one of the blessings that I have being in coaching is I'll run into people that he coached or people that he played with and just say, man, your dad really impacted me. Well, as I'm a little kid, watching him coach, listening to what players are saying, and probably the first recollection I have is probably, 10, 11 years old when he's with the Raiders, just standing there listening to what people are saying. And then later on as an 18, 19-year-old when he's with New England, just hearing that, hey, man, this guy's different. He does care about us, and he does, really want the best for us. That really sparked in me that, okay, I can impact and influence people in a positive way while coaching. Yeah. And, I feel like that is my calling. I'm going to impact and influence people in a positive way. And so with that, then, my dad's pretty much, the gold standard as far as I'm concerned. So then you have a coach that's not like my dad. And it's like, okay, I got to learn to respect this person because he's in authority. But man, you could do it a whole lot better. Right. And that's so, awesome. I did a little bit of both, Eric. I mean, obviously I took what I saw in my dad, but then I was like, okay, this isn't good what this guy's doing, and here's why. I said I knew early at Oregon State that I didn't want to be an administrator, but God placed me there for a purpose, and it was a hard 2 years. But here's what I got the opportunity to do at Oregon State. I got an opportunity to watch 10 coaches on a daily basis try to instruct certain position groups. Yeah. Okay, this guy's a yeller. This guy's this guy's this. What works? What's effective? Why is this? Okay, this guy gets mad, but then he hugs the guy later. Okay, this guy gets mad, never hugs the guy. What works? Right. And it was really like a walking internship is what it was, because you could just walk around, see everything, and oh, hey man, there is not a player in this program that respects that guy right there. He doesn't know it. And I'm 26 years old. I'm not going to go tell him, hey man, look, no player respects you because of these actions, but I'm taking notes, mentally and literally, what works, what doesn't work. And it really, it made me the coach that I am today. Even though I hated the 2 years that I was doing it from the fact that I wasn't on the field, but it made me the coach that I am today. Maybe the head coach I am today too, because without that administrative background, I don't know that I'd be as efficient and effective as a head coach as I am.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said you knew really early on that this is not the job for me. This is not. I knew 2 weeks into coaching that it was not for me. I don't know that we've ever talked about this. You hired me on right when I graduated to coach with you at APU. 2 weeks in, I was like, man, this is not me. But I had my entire degree. I had a PE degree. I was ready. My entire trajectory was aimed for this, and it freaked me out. It absolutely freaked me out. And I went through the season going, it'll connect. It'll,
Right.
and it would be interesting at the end of that season, you left, and that was my easy way out to just go, okay, yeah, I think I'm done with this also. If you had stayed, I wonder what would have happened if I would have tried to get it out and stick it out,
Well, and I mean, it's interesting because a couple of things, and we've talked a little bit about it, but I mean, number one, I thought you would be a great coach, and you were a great coach that year, and I thought you had great insight to things and a great football mind. That doesn't mean that's how God wanted to use you and what He had in store for you. But if you remember, before. Right after you got done playing, I mean, I interviewed for the Southwest Baptist head coaching job, and it's like, hey man, I'm taking you with me if I take this thing. So think of how miserable you would have been.
Yeah, we almost would have Missouri. We would have been in Missouri. I would have been spending that first year in Missouri. I just told that story the other day because the trajectory of my life might have completely changed if you take that job, and that's crazy. But then I look back at my time at APU, and the highlights of my career were hosting the rookie show and making people laugh on the sidelines. Those are the highlights of my career, and now it makes total sense.
Well, first off, I mean, the rookie show, I mean, that's got to be up there, okay? But Western New Mexico's got to be in there somewhere. I got to believe. I got to believe those drives and making that thing happen. Somewhere you've got a fond memory of that.
I do, absolutely. That game. You know what I remember most about that game? We were playing in Western New Mexico, and it was my redshirt season year. So, Coach, I hadn't played a game in 5 years.
Oh yeah,
I hadn't played a game, and I got injured the third game of my senior year in high school. So I hadn't played a game in a long time. And so, it's the first I've been as a quarterback. It's the first I've been hit in 5 years. And being at APU, we freaking bust to Western New Mexico. And right after the game, we don't even get like hey, we're going to stay in this hotel room for a night and then we're going to bus home. We get right on the bus. So after the first time of being hit in 5 years, we get right on a bus and bus back like 12 hours. And I got off. I couldn't move my neck. I was the sorest I've ever been in my entire life. That was crazy. That's small college football in a nutshell.
Oh, it is. No, Silver City, New Mexico, I believe, is where that is. I've heard it described that one of the other coaches that had to travel there, he's like, yeah, God was angry when He created Silver City, New Mexico.
Silver City, New Mexico, and Alva, Oklahoma. Those are the two cities that He made last, and He was just tired and He didn't have anything left.
But I think we're 2-0 in both of those cities. So
that's awesome.
We did not lose in either one of those spots.
Yeah. What are your keys to leadership that you can give us? You have 100+ people, coaches and students, and you got to put all this stuff together. You're in charge of it all. What keeps you grounded? What keeps you going every day?
Yeah. And it's probably a long answer, but I mean, let me try to just put it in a nutshell, and then I think something may come out of that. So first off, number one, the key to leadership is how do you lead yourself, and what do you understand yourself? Do you know yourself? Do you know your strengths? Do you know your weaknesses? Do you handle those well? And then do you build a staff around you that that fits your fits your strengths and fits your weaknesses. Okay. So I think understanding yourself is number one. What do you like to do? What don't you do? There's a lot of things I can do better than some guys on my staff, but I don't like doing them. And so it's not productive for me to do them. Even though I can do them a little better, I'm trying to get them to do it the way they want. Then there's a lot of things on that I don't do well that other guys do much better than I do, way better than I do. And I do not try to interfere with those. And I give them the freedom to do it. So, you know, I've been blessed that I've been able to hire really good defensive coordinators that understand, you know, what I want to do. And really, my real directive to those guys is, look, I want our guys to know where to go. I don't want to give up big plays. Okay. And I want pressure on the quarterback. Okay. So, you know, Sean Rochelle, a 4.25 guy, Victor Santa Cruz, a 3.3 dog guy. You know, we're a 3-man front here. I was a 4-man front at UNC Pembroke. I just look, I don't want to give up big plays. Okay. I want to get pressure on the quarterback, and I want guys to know what they're doing. That's really all I give them. And then I hire those guys, and they do it well. So, you know, number one, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Number two, how do I fit people around that? And then I think it's, you know, it's people have got to know that you believe in what you're saying and doing. And so, you know, we have as a program goal, and I've really had it, you know, from day one, is we want to help each guy become a better husband, father, employer, employee. That's, you know, that's paramount to what we're trying to accomplish here. So I appreciate you saying, hey, this guy actually cares about me. Well, I did. Brought you into the fold, you know, and, you know, as you were working your way through, you know, third team, second team, you know, now get a chance to play. I mean, treat you the same as we would have somebody else, and, you know, make that work. And so, okay, you have this goal and you say this is what you want, you know, and I've interviewed for a handful of jobs now, and in interviewing for this one, they're like, okay, so do you have goals for the program? I said, yes, I do. We got 3 goals. Well, what are they? Help each player become a better husband, father, employer, employee, help them graduate in 4 and 4.5 years, and play great football.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've gotten to the place now where I kind of know what their response is going to be. And, you know, when I knew I had a good interview here, you know, I said, look, I understand that if guys graduate and they become better people, but we don't win games, you're going to fire me.
Yeah.
And the president, that it's now the former president, we have a new president now, you know, she looked at me and said, you're exactly right. We will. And I'm like, okay, I'm interviewing with the right people, because you want to win as bad as I do, but you understand what I'm going to do. And I think with that, that's what I believe in. And I think if you went back to the APU days, the UNC Pembroke days, and the West Florida days, people would all see that. Now, with that being said, we also build around that. Okay, so you know, and just, you know, using the 3 sets of 3. Okay, we say be early to everything. Okay, now one of them is be honest. Okay, so when a guy's late or a guy cheats or whatever it is, I'm gonna tie it back to being a husband, being a father. Guy's 15 minutes late. Oh, my bad, coach. You know, I had the wrong time. I thought it was this. I said, okay, well, hey, what if I'm your daughter waiting at soccer practice? How are you going to feel about that? Huh? What do you need? Oh, no, I'd be there. Well, if you're going to be there, why aren't you here? I mean, are you, well, my job is to help you become a better husband, father. Where does that play out? So, you know yourself, know your strengths and weaknesses, hire people around you that fit, and then truly believe and live out what you talk about. And probably one of the things that I've done, what I think probably really well in the last 15 years, so part of the end of APU and then the rest, is just really try to hone in on what I believe in and what I need to be talking about. And the 3 sets of 3 is really, you know, we didn't have them the first couple of years, but then we had them. I think it was going into the 3rd year. It was just, okay, these are all the things I'm talking about. I got to put them down.
Yeah.
And that shows you a little bit of my creativity. That's the name I came up with. 3 sets of 3. You know, that's about as far as it goes. I leave in Santa Cruz names that, you know, Coat of the Claw. And I'm like, dude, where was that name? That is so cool. You
come on, man.
Well, what's up with that? You didn't share that with me? I mean, come on.
So. Anytime you're watching a football game, There's 11 guys on the field on both sides. There's a lot more guys standing on the sidelines than there are in the game. Not everyone gets to play. How do you go about managing those expectations? Nobody comes to the team wanting to ride the bench. Everyone wants to be out there. How do you go about managing those expectations with your players?
It's a great question, and it's well stated, because that's true, man. I got 120 guys, and 109 of them are standing on the sideline. Now 11 more are going to go in, and then we're going to play special teams. We're going to end up playing about 60 of them.
Sure.
But I think it comes down to really going back in the recruiting process and being honest with guys. Hey, look, here's why we're bringing you here. This is the opportunity that's in front of you. I'm not recruiting somebody to be my fifth string left guard. That's not what I'm doing. I'm recruiting you to have the opportunity on the field. Now, with that being said, I'm going to do everything I can to coach you and put you in a situation to be successful. All right? You've got to continue to work. You've got to continue to strive. You got to hold up your end of the spectrum. And we talk about this all the time, as far as, I could be the greatest coach in the world, and I could do everything right. But if you're unmotivated, if you don't care, if you don't watch film, if you're not putting the time in, you're not going to go very far. Yeah. Now, the flip of that, Eric, is I could be the worst coach in the world, but if you're motivated and you're getting better and you're doing everything, you can become a pretty good football player.
Right.
So where we try to meet is we want to be the best coach, but we also want to have the right motivated guy. Right. And I mean, your story really fits well with that narrative as to what we're trying to get guys to do. Hey, man, you do not know when your opportunity is going to come. Right. You do not know when you're going to be called upon. It could be mundane, routine, mundane. I'm over here. Hey, I can tell a joke. I can do. Oh, wait, they need me. Boom. But you got to be ready for that call, and you were ready for that call, and you answered that call extremely well. And you put yourself in a great situation to get it done. We have a tremendous story here. We got a kid who walked on, Quentin Randolph. If you watch the national championship game, he's number 29. Broke the record, I think, for most receptions and most touchdowns and most yards, I think, or something like that in the national championship game. Yeah. But he had over 1,200 yards receiving for us last year, and he came as a walk-on. He redshirted. Then he became an eligible his second year and stayed with the team. And then he got on a little bit of special teams. And then he kind of worked his way into the rotation at the end of that third year there. Okay. And that's the first year we went to the national championship. And then he became a prominent guy. And then he became an all-league player. And so, look, you don't know when your opportunity is going to come. And I think, as a backup quarterback, that guy's got to be, he's got to be a starter in his mind and preparation, and then he's got to be a patient guy. But through that as well, how do you manage that? Like you say, how do you deal with that? Constantly giving guys feedback as to where they are, constantly giving guys feedback as to what they need to do. We had a scrimmage yesterday, and our starting left tackle was out, and I had to actually go into the locker room and say, hey, man, you got to leave because of contact tracing with COVID. A guy you were studying with last night didn't have a mask on. You got to leave. Boom.
Welcome to 2020. That's fun.
Oh, yeah, man. It's a little different deal. So now, so I look at him like, okay, great. Now 2 other guys get to play left tackle. Let's see who can handle it. Let's see who can step up. You were given the opportunity to start. Are you going to take advantage of it? And it's the constant, now after they got the opportunity to play and go do it, now what are we saying to them? What are we speaking into them? Do they understand where they stand?
Right. Everyone talks about the Belichick coaching tree, all the guys that he has coached or coached with that went on to do big things. The Shinnick coaching tree is growing. It is actually pretty significant. Just with guys that I was either coached by or played with at APU, it's significant. Are you proud of that? Do you reflect on that at all?
Well, I am, and it's fun to connect with guys and see what they're doing and how they're doing. And I look at it as, okay, that's a blessing of just coaching some really good guys that now want to go into coaching. And did they come to APU or UWF or UNCP already knowing they wanted to be a coach, and then we happened to send them out? But I think, for me, I look at it as, whether they go into coaching or not, am I sending them away as a better husband, father, employer, employee? And if they're going into coaching, then great, they can take this. And what's been fun with that, as much as for the coaches and then for the non-coaches, is, hey, coach, I still use the 3 sets of 3, or hey, I still use this, or I still refer back to this. And it's like, okay, good. We at least got something into them, and we at least gave them something that, stuck. But again, I look at it as going back to, hey, what do I feel my calling is? I feel like my calling is to impact and influence people in a positive way. Right. And so if they go into coaching, if I didn't believe in what we do and how we do it, I'd change it, because, I want to always do something that I believe in. So I feel like the way we do it's better. I did not know when I started this, 22 years ago, what this generation that I'm currently coaching would be like. I had no idea that they would be the way they are. And however, our coaching style and our approach fits this generation probably better than 22 years ago, that generation. But it was who I was. So God's gracious in that he knew what was coming. He set that up for me. Now I'm just trying to stay true to it and follow it. And I really think it separates us.
Right.
People come to our practices and they're like, man, you guys are positive. And did I hear any cussing? I said, no, you didn't. And yeah, we are positive.
Right.
Wow. Really?
And if you did, it's that guy running around the track right now. Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, obviously I look back on my college days now, and with the radio and the worship leading and the musicals stuff that I'm doing now, I look back and I go, should I have done that different? Did I waste my time playing football? I could have been in music classes. I could have been in theater, all the stuff that I'm doing now. And the answer is a resounding no. I mean, it shaped who I was spiritually. It shaped my work ethic. I mean, the similarities between a football schedule and a church schedule are crazy, because Sunday is game day. So you play the game on Sunday, and then you take Monday off, and on Tuesday you come in and you watch the film of last Sunday and see how things went, and then Wednesday you're looking towards the next Sunday. Every day has a structure and a flow leading up to game day, and all that is ingrained in my mind because of football and what that did for me, and setting up your week and your calendar and all these things. And I'm an artist that shows up to things on time, which is a very rare thing.
That's extremely rare. Yeah.
And so even though I went in a completely different direction, I really feel like I have no regrets. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who have been coached by you who could say very similar things.
Well, no. And let me add to that. And I would say, now with what's going on, I mean, COVID did not make America, more energetic or more enthusiastic about going out and doing things or working hard. COVID took all the introverts and said, this is the greatest thing ever. I never have to talk to anybody. You mean to tell me the guy from Walmart's going to stick my groceries in the back of my car? That's unbelievable. Right. And so what we've been telling our guys is, hey, we already think we're setting you up for success, but we think you can get ahead of your generation, because this is going to end, and we're going to go back to normal, whatever that is. And if you guys keep working hard and you keep doing things, you're going to be able to make a big jump here on your peers in the market in trying to get ahead. So obviously, I'm a firm believer, and I agree with you that your time was number one. You made our life a lot funnier and enjoyable. So we appreciate that. And then the other part is you can take this stuff and apply it to whatever you do.
Yeah.
And again, that's part of the program goal. How do I help you become a better husband, father, employer, employee? that's what we're trying to do. And I think it applies across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. So this podcast is called The Whole Elephant. It's based on the poem The Blind Men and the Elephant, where 6 blind men just are asked to describe an elephant, and they just describe it based on the first body part they touch. They don't see the whole elephant. And a huge part of my journey the last couple of years has been figuring out my faith and the faith that I grew up with. And anytime, no matter what era you grow up in, there's going to be some things that start to not make sense, start to look a little fuzzy. And so I want to end just for a while here and leave it open-ended. Faith, God, spirituality, just trying to get people's perspectives on what that looks like for them, to try to get a picture of the whole elephant of who God is and how he's working in people's lives. So completely open-ended. What does that look like for you in your life?
Well, and I think that's it's a great way to phrase it. And I'll take you back, you and I background, similar, born and raised Christian home. And so you knew going to church, that was part of the deal that was going to take place. Probably one of my earliest experiences with prayer. My parents were going away. We lived about a mile from church. And they said, look, if it rains, you guys don't have to go to church, but if it doesn't rain, you got to walk to church. So I'm 9 years old at the time. I looked at my brother Josh, who's 11, and I said, "Hey Josh, let's pray that it rains." Okay. And Josh, being the big brother that he was, smacked me upside the head and said, "Dude, who do you think you're praying to? It's the guy who wants you to go to church." Okay. So I believe God has a sense of humor, and I believe God's involved in everything. We walk to church, it's sunny. We walk home and it rains. So, I got wet and God made a point. With that being said, I think, a lot of what you do up till age, I don't know if it's 13 to 16, I don't know where it is. A lot of what you do is based on, okay, mom's going to church, dad's going to church, I'm going to church. Boom, here's what we do. My dad made a comment to me probably about age 15. And my dad's a simple man, but, he said, "Son, look, just because you're born into a Christian home doesn't make you a Christian." Yeah. And I had accepted Christ at an early age, and so had been doing it. He said, just like if you were born in the garage, it wouldn't make you a car. So you gotta take ownership of this. And really what I have found, Eric, from probably somewhere in high school to now 55 years old, okay, is just taking ownership of what that really means. And, my testimony is pretty simple. I can't tell you when I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, but I've never doubted that he was. Now, what does that look like now? And then what is that, how has that grown? And for me, it's really been just a day-to-day process of just trying to grow closer to Almighty God through prayer, through his word, through community, and just my growing and my learning, and really seeing how all that fits into everything. And so prayer has been a tremendous part of my life growing up. My dad was probably, like I said, one of the more simpler men that I've known. His prayers were simple. My mom's prayers were more elaborate and detailed. And I'm like, okay, wow, we're really talking to God here. Okay. We're really communicating it. And so, I look at, what does God's word say? How do I apply that? One of the things that I've really been challenging myself to do, probably over the course of the last 15 years. So all my kids were born, and, so it was finally getting into a routine, but, I've tried to read through the Bible every year and just keep going through it. And I mean, the amazing thing about God's word is, what I underlined last year, I don't underline this year. And what I didn't underline last year, I might underline this year. And
you go, why did I underline that last year?
Yeah. No, exactly. It's like, well, why was that speaking to me then? Right. So it's amazing how, and it is living and breathing, and it really is alive. It's amazing how applicable it is, and
Yeah.
how, that no one's ever read the Bible, flipped it down and go, okay, good, I got it, on to the next book. Everybody said, all right, now how do I get back to it? How do I do it? So in trying to carve out that aspect of my life, that's really probably where I've grown the most over the course of the last 15, 20 years. And so I would say, look, I'm blessed to have the parents that I did, because it made my life, really good growing up.
Yeah.
All right. I had to take ownership for what we were saying and believing and living up to. And then, so first, just make it simple. First 15 years is that. Second 15 years is, okay, I got to take ownership of this thing. Who's my accountability partner? Who's speaking into my life? The next 15 years is, okay, where do I go from here? I want to make sure this is where it needs to be. To now, okay, I want to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I just, I want to find ways, my desire, obviously, as I've said, impact and influence people in a positive way. But, my goal in life is to honor and glorify God with my actions. How do I do that? How do I live up to my goal in life? I got to continue to get to know him, and I got to continue to seek him, and I got to continue to, know what he wants. And I sit here unashamedly, as a guy who started a program and went to the national championship 2 times in 4 years. I sit here and say, people go, how did that happen? What took place? Tell me what happened. And, there is a long list, but without prayer, I don't see any of that stuff happening.
Mm. Yeah. Do you feel like, do you have a pulse on the state of Christianity right now? I mean, we can talk about in the US, the world, whatever. Are there things that you look at and see that you go, I don't know about that, or we're killing it in this area? Do you have a sense of Christianity, a bigger picture right now?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably both. I'd say it's probably both. I think there's a duality going on here, and I think I really think we're fighting. I mean, the enemy's got a pretty good plan, and the enemy's pretty active, and he's really taking a lot of things that, aren't truth, and trying to get people to believe that they are. And to me, I think it's becoming more prevalent because we have more avenues to make it prevalent. Internet, social media, it's unbelievable what's taking place. I go back to the beginning, okay? And I mean, if you go to the beginning of the Old Testament and the beginning of the New Testament, okay? What Satan told Eve, all right, was a lie. Satan told Eve, look, that's not what God said. He said, Satan said, this is what God said. It's like, no, that's not what God said. You kind of twisted it there. Okay. And then, Satan tried to use God's word to tempt Jesus in the beginning of the New Testament. And so it's a lie. What are we going to believe? Now, what Jesus did, unlike Eve, Jesus countered Satan's biblical approach with biblical answer. Eve kind of looked at her husband and said, okay, oh boy, hey, we can do this. Great, let's do it. And to me, that's the significance of where we are, I think, today. I think we're getting further away from God's word, more to people's opinion. We're getting further away from, what does he want for us, as opposed to how do I feel? And so with that, I think you just throw a lot of things up in the air that make it very interesting. And, I've been, nothing's taken me away from kind of, how I felt for a long time. I mean, it's God's word. He said it. I believe it.
Right.
If he says it's a sin, I think it's a sin. If he says he parted the Red Sea, he parted the Red Sea, and so it's in his word. I'm going to take that. And I think that would be where I would say, the negative aspect of kind of shake your head, what's it look like? But then I would say, golly, killing it I mean, I just think, I mean, we got a generation now. I mean, discipleship, mentorship. I'd say where we're killing it is in praise and worship. I mean, just some amazing experiences that are taking place for people, and just now now I can carry it with me.
Right.
Now I can take it. I grew up with hymns, still love some hymns. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, we're making that work. I think there's so many good people out there that are teaching God's word and sharing it. Um, so I do see it. And then I
Right.
would say on the world perspective, my brother Chris, he's a pastor. He's a pastor here in Florida. They send missionaries out. As I mentioned, Rachel is one. I think on the world perspective, there's some amazing stuff taking place that Americans really don't know, that just makes you go, okay,
Yeah.
we, God's got a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my journey recently, Coach, has been, I grew up, like you said, always calling myself a Christian, never not calling myself a Christian, but narrowly defining what that meant. It was what my parents were telling me. It was my experience at APU. It was all positive things. But the term Christian means a lot of that covers a lot of people who claim to be that. And so as I started growing up and started being exposed to things and started seeing what different people's beliefs within Christianity were, I started to go, okay, I'm calling myself a Christian, but what does that mean? Because I don't believe that, and I do believe this, and I don't believe that. The term is just so broad.
It
And
is.
I think part of this podcast, we go back to you starting and wanting to be a head coach so you could control the culture and your time and all those things. Is I needed to get control of what I was saying Christianity was for me, because I was so overwhelmed by what it wasn't and what I was
Mm-hmm.
seeing that it wasn't, that I couldn't really accurately define it for myself. And so, the parable of the sower, guy goes, throws a bunch of seeds on the ground, and some on rocky soil and some on weeds, and then the fertile soil. I've kind of been in this process of realizing all I can do is control my soil. That's all I can do. I can't control crazy people who are putting crazy things about Christianity out there. I was spending too much time worrying about what they were doing and not enough on what I believe, how I'm living, how I'm with my family. And so you've always been somebody who has been so focused on the structure of that, of I'm going to be, like you said, I'm going to be a good husband. I'm going to be a good father. I'm going to be a good, all these things that I feel like I'm trying my best to redefine Christianity for myself, and then being comfortable just sitting in that. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think it's interesting. My wife and I were having the conversation of, that exact same thing. What does the word Christian mean? I mean,
Yeah.
what are we saying? David Peck, who, is in marketing at Azusa Pacific, and he's a guy that was one of my accountability partners while I was there. He kind of flips it and says, hey, instead of, are you a Christian? Are you a Christ follower?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so, okay, what's a follower of Christ? Well, that's different than that big term that you say, Christian. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so, to me, Eric, that's why, I mean, being in God's word and understanding God
Right.
is at the basis
Right.
of that term. And I have gotten to the place where, like you said, there's so much out there, and it's like so much that's frustrating and so much that's irritating. And it's like, hey, I don't want to be in that camp. I don't
Yeah.
want to be in that camp, or I
And
don't
I
want
don't want people to think that I'm in that camp when I say Christian.
to. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and I think my experience a little limited in this, but I mean, I think what I've seen is, are we taking God's word for what it is? And are we saying it is what it is? Because if it isn't, then it's just a good book.
Yeah.
And if you want
Well,
to,
and the good parts about it have been said by other people 1,000 times.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's the truth. It's infallible. It is what it is. Now let's go from there. So if you just want to be, like you said, a good person and take some nice quotes, because there's some really good Psalms and there's some nice Proverbs, and you're going to quote Galatians, and you're going to do some things. Sure. But I mean, what is it to you? And then I think, who is Christ to you? Because that is the first part of the word Christian.
Right. Man, Coach, this has been awesome. I appreciate you so much for doing this. We're going to be fans of, well, I say we. My mom is the only one who's going to listen to this podcast. Let's be honest. I've said it every episode. My mom is my listener. But if people happen to stumble upon this, I hope they're fans of the Argos when you guys hit the field again.
I appreciate it, man. Had a blast spending time with you. Great to see you. Tell your family I said hello.
Will do. Thanks, Coach.
All right, buddy.